I went back to my childhood home a few weeks ago. My mom was sick, and I needed to help her pack up years of stuff. It was a small two-story house built in the 70s. The air was musty, and I felt a bit uneasy as soon as I walked in. I recognized every room, but something felt off, like the house was watching me. I started in the attic one afternoon. I needed to get it done. I dug through old boxes filled with dusty toys and clothes. Then, I found a sketchbook. It was old and covered in dust. The next morning, I decided to leave the sketchbook behind for now. I thought maybe it would help me to focus on packing. I moved from room to room, but all I could think about were those drawings. The way their faces contorted haunted me. I kept hearing whispers in the back of my mind, but I brushed it aside. I couldn't let myself dwell on it. After a few hours, I took a break in the living room. I stared out the window, trying to distract myself. That's when I noticed something strange across the street. It was my old friend, Jake. He was standing in front of his house, looking up at mine. I hadn't seen him in years. I waved, and he waved back, but there was something off about his expression. He looked worried, maybe even scared. "Jake!" I yelled, stepping outside. I wanted to know why he was just standing there. But when I got to the sidewalk, he turned and rushed inside. I felt a chill run down my spine. It was odd behavior. More whispers bounced around my mind, this time sharper, like they were warning me about something. I shrugged it off and returned to the attic later that evening. Resolved to face my fears, I opened the locked box where I had hidden the sketchbook. The moment I touched it, I felt a wave of cold air sweep across the room. I hesitated but opened it again. The moment I turned the pages, I felt eyes upon me, as if the figures were alive, reaching out. And then, I froze. One drawing seemed to change. The dark figure beneath the tree now had a face, but it was not mine. It was Jake's. My heart raced. I flipped to another page, and there he was again, trapped in a shadow. My mind churned with questions. How was this possible? Had I drawn these without remembering? In a daze, I slammed the sketchbook shut. I couldn't breathe. I needed to talk to Jake. But when I got outside, my heart sank. There was an eerie silence. The street was empty. The light had dimmed as dusk approached. I called his name, but no answer came. Then I heard a whisper, clearer than before. It was coming from the darkened trees along the edge of my yard. "Help him," it said, and my blood ran cold. I hadn't heard the words clearly at first, but now they were as clear as day. I stood there, frozen. "Help who?" I asked aloud, but there was no response. All I felt was the hair on my arms standing on end. Somehow, I knew I had to face this. I walked toward the trees, the whispers urging me on. I wanted to turn back, but curiosity and fear pulled me forward. That's when I noticed something at the base of the oldest tree. It was a familiar shape, half buried in the dirt. I crouched down, my heart racing. That's when I saw it. A small, tattered drawing, similar to my sketches, but different. Something pulled at me to reach for it, but a voice in my head screamed at me to stop. As my fingers brushed the paper, my world spun. I stumbled back, and everything went dark. I gasped as I jolted back to consciousness, my body sprawled on the damp grass beneath the trees. My mind was foggy, the echoes of whispers swirling like smoke around me. I shot up, scanning my surroundings. The once familiar yard felt alien. I blinked, trying to make sense of the darkness that cloaked everything. The streetlights flickered on, casting an eerie glow. I shook my head, pushing myself to stand. The cold earth still clung to my palms. What just happened? I muttered. My heart thudded in my chest as my gaze landed on the tattered drawing that lay abandoned where I had touched it. It called to me, a sinister siren-esque song. Hesitantly, I picked it up, studying it closely. The edges were jagged, as if it had been torn from something larger. And the figures, they were hauntingly familiar, more vivid than my own sketches. There was Jake, just as I had drawn him, but next to him was a figure I didn't recognize. It had a twisted smile, eyes devoid of warmth. The hair hung in strands like shadows, and there was something intrinsically wrong about its posture. I shivered, my stomach turning. I couldn't shake the feeling that this drawing contained some dark truth. I heard a rustling in the bushes behind me. My heart raced again, and I instinctively turned. "Jake?" I called out, but the only answer was silence, stretching on longer than it should. The whispers intensified, echoing in my mind. "Help him, help them." Each phrase seemed to echo the pulse of my anxiety. Who did I need to help? I needed answers. I needed to find Jake. Driven by a mix of dread and determination, I sprinted across the yard. The darkness pressed down on me, thick and cloying. I hesitated at his front porch, peering through the darkened window. The curtains were drawn, but it felt as if eyes were watching me from inside. "Jake!" I knocked forcefully, my palms stinging from the impact. "Are you in there?" I waited, but all I heard was the soft rustling of leaves. Just as despair began to creep in, I saw movement behind the glass. A flicker of a shadow, then nothing. A chill ran through me, but I couldn't let it stop me. I stepped back, glancing at my drawing again. The twisted figure seemed to loom larger, as if breaching the boundaries of the paper. That thought terrified me. And suddenly, I heard it, a soft, pained cry, muffled but unmistakable. It was coming from the tree line, where shadows danced under the faint light. Without thinking, I pushed through the lightly swaying branches, my fear propelling me forward. What awaited me on the other side of those trees was both baffling and horrifying. I found myself in a small clearing where the air felt thick. Jake lay sprawled on the ground, eyes closed as if in deep sleep. Yet, something about him felt wrong. Nearby, a figure lurked, its outline shrouded in darkness but for the glimmer of that twisted smile. I stumbled back, realizing too late that I had walked straight into the heart of whatever darkness had claimed my friend. I felt my breath quicken as I took in the scene before me. Jake was just a few feet away, motionless, while the shadowy figure loomed over him. It stirred, its head cocked slightly, as if it had sensed my presence. My heart raced with the urge to flee, to escape whatever nightmare had seeped into my reality. But I couldn't abandon Jake. Instead, I took a step forward, hesitating when the figure turned its attention toward me completely. The twisted smile widened, horror etched into every sharp line of its face. I swallowed hard. "Jake!" I shouted, urgency fueling my voice. "Wake up!" The figure shifted, taking a step toward me. I felt a rush of cold air envelop me, an unnatural chill that set my skin crawling. It felt almost like it was trying to pull me in, to draw me closer. Everything inside me screamed to run, but somehow, I was rooted in place. "Help him!" The whispers erupted in my mind again, their frantic tone demanding action. I kept my eyes locked on the figure. "What do you want?" I dared to ask. It laughed, the sound echoing through the clearing, a hollow, haunting sound that filled me with dread. Then, without warning, it lunged towards Jake. Panic surged through me. I dashed forward, my legs propelling me faster than I thought possible. I felt a surge of adrenaline, a desperate instinct to protect my friend. I reached Jake just as the figure's shadow enveloped him. "Get away from him!" I yelled, shoving the figure with all my strength. To my shock, my hands passed right through it. The moment felt surreal, like a fever dream. The figure flickered, momentarily fading before reassembling with that same twisted smile. I stumbled back, realizing that physical confrontation wouldn't work. My mind raced. What could I do? The drawing. I fumbled to pull it from my pocket, feeling the edges scrape my fingers. Jake. I think I know how to stop this. I blurted out. I held the drawing above my head, bracing myself. The figure recoiled slightly, its laughter dying down. I know you're connected to it somehow. I know what you are. The figure's face warped, eyes narrowing as it focused on the paper. For a fleeting moment, something flickered across its features: rage. Fear. I couldn't tell, but whatever it was made my stomach flip. Then, just as I thought I had found some leverage, the ground beneath me trembled, and I felt it a violent pull, like gravity itself had turned against me. I staggered, and the drawing fluttered from my grasp, spiraling down into the grass. No. I lunged for it, scrambling, but the figure was faster. It reached the drawing first, snatching it up with an almost predatory glee. I gasped in horror. That candlelight glow was gone from the paper as it fell. The ink twisted and writhed, resembling the sinister figure before me. And in that moment, I understood I had unleashed something far worse than I ever imagined. That's when I felt the darkness envelop me completely, a cold embrace that threatened to swallow everything I was. As the darkness closed in, a chill gripped my body. The weight of despair settled over me like a thick fog. I couldn't see, couldn't move. An oppressive silence filled the air, every sound swallowed by the void. My heart hammered in my chest, a frantic drum echoing my panic, but I had to fight it. Jake! I called, my voice barely a whisper. I felt utterly alone, abandoned in my own mind. But finally, a glimmer of light broke through the suffocating blackness. It flickered like a candle, pulsing with energy. I strained to focus, and the light began to take shape. That's when I saw it, a new figure materializing beside me, radiating warmth. It was a girl, maybe around my age, her features clear but her expression distressed. You have to run, she urged urgently. You're in danger. Who are you? What is happening? I managed to croak out, fear tightening my throat. It's coming for you. The drawing, it's tied to him. The girl pointed toward the shadowy figure, now looming behind her. The smile had twisted into something far more sinister, each sharp tooth gleaming with malice. In that moment, I realized it wasn't just about saving Jake, it was about saving myself as well. I can't leave Jake. I shouted over the rising panic. She shook her head. You need to free him from the figure's grasp. You have to destroy the drawing. The words hit me like a jolt. Destroy the drawing. How could I do that when it felt like it was my only connection to Jake? But I realized it was also the source of the figure's power. I needed to make a choice. Before I could respond, the shadow lunged forward. I felt the air crackle around me, a sense of foreboding flooding my mind. The girl grabbed my arm. Now. You can do this. In that split second, I spotted the crumpled drawing on the ground. The ink writhed like a serpent, twisting and turning as if it had a life of its own. I dashed toward it, the girl's voice urging me on, now, focus. Picture it burning. I knelt down, heart racing, the figure's breath a chill on the back of my neck. I imagined flames consuming the paper. Just as I reached out for it, the shadow lunged once more. This time, I felt an energy surge through me, an unfamiliar strength. But just as I grasped the drawing, the shadow hit me like a wave, and the air turned frigid. I gasped in shock, feeling the pull of despair again. Panic surged through me. I had to fight. With a desperate scream, I envisioned the flames once more, willing the image into reality. Burn! I cried, and suddenly, the drawing ignited with an unnatural fire. As the flames licked at the drawing, the figure shrieked. The sound pierced through my mind, igniting my fear into rage. The girl smiled, and for a moment, I felt empowered. But as the flames consumed the paper, a roar erupted from the figure, shaking the ground beneath us. It wasn't over yet. Something deep inside me knew this was only the beginning. And then, Just as fast, everything went dark again. The heat of the flames disappeared, replaced with an even colder grip. A chill crept into my bones as I realized this wasn't just about Jake or the drawing anymore. I had awakened something far more sinister, and I didn't know how to stop it. I gasped as the darkness enveloped me again. I couldn't breathe. I was suspended in an emptiness that clawed at my mind. But this time, I felt something different, a faint pulsing, like a heartbeat, throbbing in rhythm within the void. I focused on that pulse, willing myself to break free from the immobilizing darkness. Gradually, shapes began to emerge. I squinted, heart racing, and saw the girl's face again. She looked frantic. "You need to listen to me," she urged, her voice urgent. "You have to control the power." "What power? I don't understand." I was overwhelmed, the weight of fear pushing down on my chest. "The drawing was just the beginning. The figure knows you now. It knows how to find you," she said, urgency rising in her voice. "You've tied your fate to his, and that means you must learn to wield it against him." A wave of panic washed over me. I felt my heart pounding as I glanced around, hoping to catch even a glimpse of the shadow. "What do you mean, wield it?" I stammered, still grasping the remnants of the burning drawing in my mind. "Focus!" she shouted, her eyes locking onto mine. "You felt the surge when you burned it. That energy gives you power. You can fight back, but you need to harness it correctly." Suddenly, something shifted in the shadows. It was subtle but unmistakable. I could feel the figure watching me, an ominous presence lurking just beyond the edge of the light. The girl clenched my arm, grounding me. "We need to find your willpower, to push him back. Use the fear against him." I felt a flicker of something inside me, a tiny spark against the chill. I called to it, willing it to grow stronger. But doubt crept in, every moment spent in this dark space whispered thoughts of failure. What if I can't? What if it's too late? Then it's all over. "You can't let him win," she exclaimed, her voice fierce. "Jake is counting on you. You're stronger than you think, but you have to believe it." As her words sank in, I shut my eyes, focusing on the faint light that flickered in the darkness. I imagined the flames one more time, the heat I felt before. I envisioned it roaring to life, filling me with strength. Just then, a guttural growl reverberated through the air, shaking me to my core. The figure, angry and more menacing, moved forward. I opened my eyes just as it lunged toward us. For a moment, I froze, terror gripping my limbs. But then the memory of the girl's determination sparked a resolve within me. I couldn't let fear paralyze me. Not now. Not when Jake was still in danger. I reached forward into the darkness, searching for that energy. "I want to let you take him," I shouted, my voice powerful and fierce. "You don't own us." In that moment, the darkness swirled around me, but I stood tall. The girl nodded, her face lit with hope. Perhaps, somehow, I could turn this around. But just as I felt a surge of power, a blinding flash erupted in front of me, and everything turned white. I was thrown backward, and I landed hard on solid ground. Stunned, I took a breath and blinked rapidly. This wasn't the dark void anymore. I was back in my childhood bedroom, but everything felt off. The air was heavy, charged with energy. Then I remembered I had to find Jake. And that's when I noticed it. 3 strange new drawings were pinned to my wall, glowing eerily. My heart raced as I approached them. What had I unleashed? The shadows were still out there, and I knew they weren't done with me yet. The glow of the drawings caught my eye, pulling me closer. I hesitated, my pulse quickening. Each image was vivid, reflecting a distorted reality. One depicted a dark figure lurking behind a shadowy tree, another showed a circle of flames with figures surrounding it, all frozen in panic. The third was an incomplete landscape, filled with twisted vines and darkened skies. What is this? I whispered, scanning them for answers. The girl's warning echoed in my mind. Somehow, these drawings were connected to everything that had happened. As I reached out, a jolt of energy surged through me, like static electricity. I jerked my hand back, startled. My breath quickened. I had felt that before, the pulsing energy from the darkness. It was here now, lurking in this familiar space. The room felt constricting, as if the walls were closing in. I turned, searching for an escape, but all I found were the remnants of my childhood photos, toys, and the ticking clock that now sounded menacing. Then I remembered what the girl had said, you have to control the power. I had to figure out what these drawings meant. Panic washed over me. I couldn't just stand there. I needed to act. I pulled the first drawing off the wall, feeling the energy pulse through my fingers. It was warm, alive. If this is connected to that figure, maybe it can help me, I thought. I closed my eyes, concentrating on the drawing of the dark figure. I could almost hear the whispers of its malevolent intentions. Suddenly, a loud crash echoed from downstairs, snapping me back to reality. I froze, heart hammering. Someone or something was in the house. Anxiety surged through my veins. I couldn't stay here. Jake. I had to find him. I hurried to the door, ears straining for any sound. The crash had been loud, but now there was only silence. That unnerving kind of silence. I carefully opened the door, peering down the hallway. It felt like stepping into a nightmare. Each creak of the floorboards beneath my feet sent chills up my spine. I could still see the glowing drawings behind me, the energy still humming in the air. I took a deep breath and moved toward the stairs. Stay strong, I murmured to myself. But as I reached the first step, I felt a sudden gust of wind blow through the hall, whisking by me with an icy touch. The hairs on my arms stood on end. I peered into the darkness that loomed below. What awaited me down there? I couldn't turn back. Gathering my courage, I stepped down the first stair, heart racing. Just as I descended, I heard a voice low and raspy murmuring my name. Lily. It didn't sound like Jake. My blood ran cold. That voice was chilling. I had to know who or what it belonged to. But as I reached the bottom of the stairs, I realized I wasn't the only one searching for the truth. The shadows had come for me, and now they were closing in. The shadows stretched around me, merging into the darkness. I squinted, trying to make sense of the dimly lit space. I could feel a presence. It was suffocating. I strained to see past the gloom, stepping further into the foyer. Jake! I called out. My voice echoed back, swallowed by the silence. There was no response. I took a cautious step forward, the wooden floor creaking loudly underfoot. My heart raced with each sound. A flicker from the corner of my eye caught my attention. I turned toward the living room, where sunlight struggled to penetrate through the curtains. The urge to find Jake overwhelmed me. But part of me was anchored in fear, drawing me back. I need to keep moving, I whispered to myself. I held my breath and stepped into the living room. That's when I saw it. A figure crouched in the shadows, just beyond the sunlight. My breath caught in my throat. It looked like a person, but the way it hunched made it seem more animalistic. My eyes widened in terror. Who is there? I demanded, trying to sound brave. The figure stirred but didn't respond. It didn't need to. I could feel its eyes on me, a weight that made my skin crawl. I turned on my heel, ready to bolt, but the hallway behind me felt like a gaping maw, ready to swallow me whole. Please, tell me where Jake is. My voice wavered, betraying my fear. Slowly, the figure rose. I could see the contours of its face, but it was still shrouded in shadow. He is not safe, it rasped. The voice was the same one that had called my name. I felt the chill of recognition shoot through me. Who are you? I stepped back, my pulse drumming in my ears. I am not your enemy, it whispered, the words wrapping around me like a fog. But there are forces at play, dark forces that you cannot comprehend. Before I could question it, the figure pointed towards the staircase. I followed its gesture. My heart sank. At the top, something stirred. A shadow moved across the landing, dark and inky, as if it were alive. Jake! I shouted, desperation clawing at me. The figure stepped closer to me. You need to listen, it urged, a raw urgency in its voice. The drawings are not just lines on paper. They hold the key to what is happening. You need to harness that energy before it consumes you. I felt dizzy, the weight of their words crashing over me. My mind raced with possibilities and confusion. But how? Just then, the shadow at the top of the stairs lunged forward, spilling into the room with a rush of cold air. It roared, an ear-splitting sound that echoed through the house. I spun toward the other figure. What is that? Run! It shouted, lunging forward, shielding me. Everything went dark as the shadow swelled, enveloping us both. I surged forward, propelled by instinct, and something deep inside me ignited. I couldn't see, but I could feel the energy pulsing through the room, drawing on the drawings I had touched. My awakening. Then, just as quickly, everything went silent. I gasped for breath. The silence was deafening, but my mind raced. Where was I? My heart slammed against my ribcage as I forced my eyes open. The darkness was thick, but I could make out the outline of the figure that had helped me. Are you okay? It asked, its voice softer now, almost gentle. I nodded, though I felt a wave of nausea wash over me. How had it all gone dark? What had happened? What just? There's no time, it interrupted, urgency returning to its tone. We need to move. I glanced around, but I couldn't tell where we were. The room felt different, as if the walls were closing in. Shadows twisted around us. I opened my mouth to speak, but my words fled as I heard a low growl emanating from the darkness. What was that? I squeaked, fear quaking in my voice. The figure stepped in front of me, their silhouette shielding me from whatever lurked just beyond the shadows. The creature is drawn to fear. It feeds on it. You must stay calm. Calm. That was easier said than done. I took a shaky breath and forced myself to focus. What did you mean about the drawings? What energy? They are conduits, it explained, urgency threading through its words. They connect us to forces beyond this world. But they're unstable. If you don't master them, they can awaken what lies beneath. What lies beneath? I asked, dread pooling in my stomach. In response, a figure appeared from the darkness, its shape contorting and elongating. A pair of glowing eyes met mine, and I felt a chill seep into my bones. It knows we are here, my protector whispered, trembling. Who is it? What does it want? Panic clawed my throat. The shadow is a manifestation of your fears. It must be controlled, but it won't allow you to leave willingly. Before I could comprehend the full weight of those words, the creature lunged toward us, dissolving the darkness with a sudden burst of chilling air. I stumbled back, but the figure behind me steadied me, its hand gripping my arm tightly. We need to protect the drawings, it said, pushing me toward the small table where the sketches lay. They will help us fight. I squinted against the darkness, seeing the familiar shapes of my childhood creations. As I reached for one, a swirling design that mirrored how I felt inside, I felt an electric charge leap through my fingers. The creature howled, and the air thickened with tension. Focus your energy on the drawing. The figure urged. It will give you strength. With trembling hands, I pressed the paper close to my chest. Suddenly, I noticed something within the design, a pulse of color that was not just ink but energy. I closed my eyes and thought of Jake, of finding him, of the urgency to break free. As I poured my feelings into the drawing, heat surged through me. The creature recoiled in surprise, eyes wide, the growl now a hiss of confusion. My protector nodded at me, its own determination blazing. Now. Release it. I opened my eyes and unleashed everything I felt. A blinding light erupted from the drawing, illuminating the shadows. The creature shrieked, retreating into the depths. But that wasn't all. In the distance, behind the fading shadows, I heard another voice, Jake's, help. My heartbeat quickened again. Jake! I shouted, suddenly more determined than ever. I had to find him. I had to save him. But now, a new realization dawned on me, the drawings were just beginnings. There was so much more at stake than I ever imagined. And as the shadows writhed, I knew I was running out of time. I scrambled toward the light, the energy from the drawing pulsing through me, guiding me in its haunting glow. The shrieks of the creature echoed behind me, but the blinding light repelled its darkness. With newfound determination, I pressed forward, the familiar warmth of courage wrapping around my heart like a protective cocoon. Jake! Where are you? I shouted, trying to pinpoint his voice over the chaos. Panic surged inside me, but I fought to keep it at bay. I could do this. I had to. As the shadows curled like smoke, I felt the drawing in my hands start to shift. The patterns morphed under my touch, swirling into shapes and symbols that seemed to connect with the world around me. I focused harder, realizing that I needed to draw from that energy, to let it guide me. Help! Came Jake's voice again, stronger now, and filled with urgency. It was close, but the shadows were thickening, attempting to swallow up the light. I could hardly breathe, the air thick with dread. I steeled myself, gripping the glowing drawing tighter and channeling my energy into it, visualizing a beam of light piercing through. Thoughts of Jake flooded my mind, imbuing my power with intent. Show me where he is. I yelled, and the drawing vibrated with a life of its own. Suddenly, the darkness peeled back, revealing a path etched out by light. That way! I shouted, rushing ahead, my feet pounding against the ground that felt both familiar and treacherous. I followed the trail, each step resonating with an echo of hope. The darkness fought back, shadows flailing around me, but I pushed through, refusing to waver. The voices of countless whispers swirled in my mind, but I focused on one sound, the resonant clarity of Jake's voice. At last, I burst into a clearing. There he was, lying on the ground, his eyes clenched shut, covered in a sheen of sweat. Jake! I rushed to his side, a mix of relief and fear flooding through me. The moment I touched him, the whispers sharpened, screaming louder than before. He is trapped. I realized. The shadow that had pursued us slinked behind him, forming a menacing silhouette, laughing with a chilling cadence. No! I yelled, and with that defiance, I raised the drawing high above my head. It glowed brighter, pushing against the consuming darkness. You're not taking him. I won't let you. The creature recoiled, its laugh fading into a growl. Finding strength in the determination to save him, I concentrated. The light burned hotter, sparking with energy as I concentrated, imagining the creature being repelled by the power radiating from the drawing. Jake stirred, his eyes fluttering open at last. Lily? He mumbled, fear and confusion clouding his gaze. Jake, I'm here. Get up. I shouted, not daring to lose focus. The darkness slashed out at me, its twisted limbs clawing. But as Jake stood, the light surged forward, breaking through the shadows like dawn breaking into night. The scream of the figure pierced the air, and I could feel the energy shift, the shadows weakening, losing their grip. In that moment, I knew I had to act decisively. I pulled together every last ounce of courage, every shred of energy. You don't own us. I cried, and with all my might, I hurled the drawing into the void. The drawing exploded in a blaze of luminescent flames, consuming the shadow with purifying light. It shrieked, twisting and contorting as the darkness dissipated, sucking in every hint of terror that had clung to me. Then, just as quickly as it appeared, the shadow vanished. The weight lifted from my chest, and silence fell, a heavy, palpable silence. Jake and I stood side by side, bathed in the aftermath of light. "What just happened?" he breathed, taking in our surroundings. I think I freed us," I said, a shaky breath escaping me. We both stared at the place where the darkness had coiled. But as the light dimmed, I noticed that the drawings I had found were eerily blank again. "No more whispers," Jake muttered, the burden of fear lifting from his voice. But uncertainty lingered in my mind. Had I truly ended it, or merely pushed it back? The energy from the drawing flickered within me, a whisper of power lost in the echoes of the night. "Do you think it's really over?" I asked, my heart heavy with unasked questions. "I don't know," Jake replied. "But whatever it is, it felt real." With a heavy sigh, I observed the clearing illuminated by the glow of the dawn. Maybe it was over. Maybe we were free. Still, I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. As we walked back through the swaying grass toward the house, somewhere in the shadows, I sensed the lingering presence of something. And I couldn't help but wonder, was it really gone, or had we simply become a part of its story? I moved to a different city after that. Sometimes, I still think about those drawings. I wonder if Jake and I will ever fully escape whatever darkness had breathed life into them. But mostly, I try not to think about it.